Okay, are we ready to go to harmonizing now?
Yeah.
For ENFJs. All right, let's talk about the characteristics of a harmonizing ENFJ subtype.
Okay, so harmonizing subtypes are more empathic and reflective. And in some ways, even though you can be trained into being a harmonizing subtype at any age, depending upon your family system, it usually is that people find themselves at harmonizing when they're a little older, right? This is frequently a more seasoned place. Not always, but oftentimes. So these are more quietly sophisticated ENFJs. They are good at intuitive models. They're very good at thinking and listening. They're more receptive. So for the type geeks, both the perceiving and the judging functions, both of the preferred functions, are holistic or receptive. So they're less focused and driven and assertive, but they're more open and see a bigger picture. And so that means that they're really good at taking in information and listening and understanding its implication.
Neurotransmitter, this is the chemical of estrogen, is going to be more dominant here in this subtype.
Right, exactly. And their brain pattern is more of a diamond shape. And that holds true for all harmonizing subtypes. So there's kind of a unique network of brain wiring in a harmonizing ENFJ's mind. And it can show up in all sorts of very unique ways, but striking ways. Dario gives the example of while listening to somebody, they may receive a striking visual image of what that person suffered as a child and bring that up for discussion. So there's just little things that strike them very clearly. And because of that, they have a unique way of experiencing life at this point that feels a little unusual. So these might be ENFJs that are a little unusual. In fact, in some ways, I almost see this as being the stereotypes of ENFJs, I believe, are more dominant and harmonizing than they are normalizing and creative, right?
Yeah.
Those two are the ones that we forget about, but we see that assertive ENFJ that's kind of taken charge and in politics and righting the wrongs of the world, right? Or in corporate America or whatever. Or the mom, right? The mom ENFJ, or that assertive dad ENFJ, right? That is very certain about how things should be set up. But then we also have the sort of the flowing ENFJ that's kind of mystical and
Sage.
woo-woo, and the sage, right? That oracle style of ENFJ.
Yeah.
And this would be closer to that style. So they still have strong executive functions, more so than other harmonizing subtypes, but they're not very good at managing other people. So they themselves can move towards goals, but they really are not comfortable trying to get other people to take motions towards those goals. So they're not good managers. That said, they are good at responding to events in a focused way, and not focused, but a goal-oriented way. So they can make things happen for themselves, but they struggle to make things happen for groups. And that's not always the stereotype around ENFJs, although we can all think of that person, right? That ENFJ person probably that's more mystical and doesn't really seem to be setting up shop anywhere, doesn't have an entrepreneurial streak necessarily, but they might be more solopreneurs. They might be setting up their own practices. And obviously, this is going to very much lend itself to psychotherapy, to counseling, to being maybe a spiritualist. Maybe this person is a tarot reader, or maybe they're a massage therapist, right? They're more one-on-one working with people and helping heal and guide in a one-to-one capacity, as opposed to trying to move large groups of people.
I think this ENFJ style has a lot slower energy cycle. In other words, they have a lot of lean back energy. Sometimes you would not guess they were an extrovert to that point. They have such a low energy sometimes. You're like, is this an introvert? Am I talking to an introvert right now? This does not feel like EJ energy and how I'm used to it. And that's again, because they have that holistic framework for both of their front two functions. They're more receptive, and their energy's not as go get it. You got to attack this. I'm going to let it come to me. I'm going to let the energy come into my field. And then when it does, I'll work with it and I'll be in that present space.
Yeah. Just like a creative ENFJ might mistype as an ENFP or an ESFP, and the normalizing might mistype as an STJ. Interestingly enough, sometimes ENFJs mistype themselves as STJs, and that's usually because they're normalizing.
SFJs too.
And SFJs. Sometimes the dominant ENFJ, usually they know what type they are, but sometimes they'll think that they're maybe an ENTJ. I think that these ENFJs, the harmonizing, oftentimes believe they're INFJs. I think it's very common.
And they sometimes struggle with the same, like in more so, I mean, ENFJs often struggle with the same thing INFJs struggle with, picking up people's psychic energy, knowing what they're feeling, having the feelings assault them. But I would say this is the subtype that struggles with it the most. Like it's more likely they're going to have that protection they need to create in the world against the psychic energy and garbage people are going to throw at them inadvertently, not on purpose. It just happens for ENFJs. And I think this is the type that's most likely to have that.
Of the 4 ENFJ subtypes.
Of the 4 ENFJ subtypes, that's right.
Yeah, they're comfortable with time alone, reflecting, imagining, meditating, divining hidden meanings, and working with symbols, archetypes, and ideas. And so that's going to show up as being they're going to be very in touch with their intuitive side. And that means that they're going to be receptive to other people's stuff for sure. So the nice thing about being this style is that you gain great insights into people and make excellent psychotherapists and counselors and people who are tapped in and tuned into what's going on for others. The disadvantage is that you're going to be a little counterculture, have trouble merging with society, and you might actually find yourself struggling with the ordinary. Anything that's mundane or ordinary might be very difficult for you to move into. And so all 4 of these subtypes have a path, and they all show up doing different roles. But you can tell, like, this idea of an event planner that's on your list of the top 10 ENFJ, career paths. Clearly, event planner is going to be so much more suited to a dominant or a normalizing ENFJ than, say, a creative or a harmonizing ENFJ. They're going to have a lot more struggle with event planning. And at the same time, there are other things on your list that are going to very much suit the creative and the, harmonizing that really wouldn't suit the dominant or the normalizing.